The Unconventional Therapist's Guide to Nothing.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Unconventional Therapist's Guide to Nothing. My name is Dave. I'm joined here with Greg, and this is what we do all the time, all the freaking time.
It's what we do. It's what we do. Okay. It's not what we do great. It's what we do. Okay.
It's what we do. Okay. It is what we do. It is a routine.
Dave, are you always wearing glasses?
Yes. Every single time you see me, I have glasses on. I've never not worn glasses around you.
They look good. I didn't even realize that. How about that?
Wow. You've literally never realized that I'm always wearing glasses.
It's funny. It's, I guess I just never really stopped and looked. We
my
did
face?
different with the cameras, and
You've literally never stopped and looked at my face.
I guess not. I guess when we're recording, I'm always kind of looking at my own face. Is that weird?
Narcissist.
Yeah, a little bit of a narcissist. It scares me a little bit. Oh boy.
I'm not always wearing glasses. I was messing with.
Oh, good. Okay. That's scary. So let's get into this thing. What do you think?
Scary how much you believed me.
Oh, Dave, I did want to tell you something. You might appreciate this because it's kind of your realm. I saw a piece of art that I was interested in. I know you know that I'm interested in art, right?
Yeah.
But to get it, it was the work was done by someone who's downtown, in an area of, like, just filled with a bunch of artist lofts. Kind of, I think this person is very, like, involved in, it might be home, I don't know, but like just incredible sort of street art kind of thing, I guess you would call it. But there's something that just like grabbed my eye, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go down there, find this person, and see if he'll sell me this art. And they did. And I brought children along.
Wait, was this like risky?
Yeah.
What? Oh.
Well, it turned out to be like this person was actually super kind of sweet and awesome and talented as hell.
What's the art?
It's just like a black and white close up of the Statue of Liberty. For whatever reason, it really just kind of stuck out to me. But then he threw in another piece of art that's like an elephant, but with like a lot of his like graffiti around it and stuff like that.
Wait, what's his first name?
Frank.
Yeah. G?
Yeah.
Last name G. Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
How do you know who he is?
So my buddy that I do PVD horror with is worked with him, and he's we follow him on PVD horror. We support him. He supports us. Yeah, he's great.
He's awesome, dude. He's like such a cool
I knew who
guy.
you were talking about as soon as you said no, he's a pretty big name. He goes around and does a lot of things.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm
trying to remember his last name so I can give him a shout out, because since you just bought some art from him, I want to say it's like Goth. I can look it up really quick.
I think it's Gauthier.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
French.
Francis Gauthier. Yeah, Gautier. Frankie Gautier.
Yeah. Incredible stuff.
Funny. I knew it.
Yeah. All right. So what are we talking about today? Or do we even say hello? What are we doing? I'm lost.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little lost today too.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Dave, we can reflect on that for a second, because I think we've both been really busy lately. Really busy.
Well, I didn't know if I wanted to share this or not, because I'm going to try not to get emotional. So yeah, this weekend I had to say goodbye to my best bud, my dog. And so I've been a little bit out of it. And honestly, like I was saying, like doing this as routines, the whole situation has kind of made me like reflect on how much routine I have. And like, I've been kind of thinking about things that are routine that I had involved with him, and now not really knowing what to do with myself on those routines, and kind of thinking about my parents who were very close with him, obviously, and they all the routines they had with him. And it's a lot. It's so like that aspect is like kind of been just really heavy on my mind lately. Just like, what do you do? How do you move forward? It's about finding new routines and things like that. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but
I
that's
am really sorry to hear that. You don't have to be going anywhere with that. I mean,
yeah,
it's just, thank you for sharing that. Um, I'm not going to sit here and try to like do what we would do inside of an office. That would be
yeah.
insulting your,
uh,
but I mean, I will say, man, like, what can you're going to feel it.
yeah.
And don't push it
Well,
away. Just feel it.
I've
Yeah.
been feeling it, trust me. For for people who like, I don't know, I think I've talked a little bit about my dog, but like I've had him for like 12 and 13, no, going on 13 years in February it would have been. He was a stray. I found him on the side of the street,
Mm.
got him into an animal shelter, and then like a couple months later I was going to adopt a dog, didn't think I'd ever see him again, and they were like, hey, we got a dog for you, and they brought him out. I was like, oh, it's meant to be. That's my boy. And it's been like, yeah, he helped me get through some really tough times just by being there and being like that positive regard, that like no judgment. So that was he was very helpful through a lot of things. And yeah, so I'll miss him. But anyways, that's yeah. So that's what's going on with me. So on
Yeah,
that note,
yeah, no, hard to pivot from that. I mean,
yeah,
but like honestly, that's why I don't have pets.
it is tough.
When you said that, how you and your dog met, it's like I had a very similar sort of meeting. Like it kind of like I feel like a lot of people might have that meeting where like one kind of reacts to you and maybe comes up to you, and I
Yeah.
remember I picked up that dog lady who I had for 20 years almost,
Yeah.
and when that dog died, I said no more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
tough. It's really tough to like
I-
move on from that.
yeah. I mean, from a kid to an adult,
Yeah.
and dude, and I saw like your interaction. I only got to the pleasure of meeting once,
Yeah.
but like Dave, you're a sweet soul. I know you've had that connection with my dad when you guys both talked about how animals are better than people. My dad's a firm believer in that,
Mhm.
and you seemed right on board. And I mean, I can't really say anything else besides I'm sorry, man. And
Thank
if
you.
you need anything from me, or if
Yeah.
you need to just chat, whatever you need from me, I'm here.
Appreciate it. I'm just glad I was able to say that out loud and not start crying immediately. I think that's probably the first time I've acknowledged it out loud without like my instant tears. So yeah, that actually felt good to just say it and not have that reaction right now. So
I
and
saw it.
plus,
It was close though.
that's why I'm wearing glasses. You can't really see.
Yeah, yeah. Should have wore sunglasses.
I should have. That would have been a better idea. So I'm just going to say this to the listeners. I apologize if I'm not on my A game today, and I hope that you will give me some grace. I will get back there. But it literally just happened a couple days ago, so it's kind of weighing on me. On another unrelated note, I just want to say this because normally we do this stuff at the end, but we had a really amazing email, and I'm not going to share it completely, but I wanted to at least acknowledge it right now. So our listener's name is Kate, and she sent us this incredible email, just giving feedback and suggestions for future episodes. And it was really like the time that she took to write this email to us was so appreciated. I read it actually the night that after everything had kind of happened. I read it and I was like, that's something positive to like get my mind off of things, and kind of just like the fact that someone takes that time to write to us and write like heartfelt and also like personal stuff was incredible. And I just want to say this. Did you get a chance to
So
read
I
over
read
the
it,
email?
and I read it twice, and I said to my son after I read it, I said, when you guys wonder why I take the time to do this and for free, you know what I mean? And it's this is it. All we need is like one or two Kates, and that's enough to kind of keep you going.
And we've been fortunate enough to have a number of listeners like Kate, so I feel really grateful and blessed for that. But like, I just wanted to share. So she sent these topics, and I was like, how have we not come up with some of these? I was like,
Yeah.
these are so good. These are so good. Well, I just wanted to share a few of them. Brainwashing. How have we not thought about brainwashing?
I don't know. I don't know.
That feels like we should have already have come up with that idea. So yes, that's got to be on the list. Stockholm syndrome. We have on the list already, I
Beauty and the
believe.
Beast, right? I mean, we could talk about that.
Scientology, I believe we have on the list already, so that will be one that will come up. And she's mentioned also any cults, and yeah, Nixon's war on drugs is a really good one, I think. Yeah, and there's a bunch more that are really good. She also mentions one though that I think we're definitely going to have to do at some point, and I feel like we probably haven't done it because it's a little daunting to get it right. Substance abuse. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp.
Wow, that's a professional right there. Dave, this month for BetterHelp, it's all about gratitude. And I'm curious, is there anyone you're specifically thankful for this month besides me?
Nope, just you and Michael J. Fox.
Okay, good.
It can be really hard to remember to take a moment to be grateful, but it's incredibly important. We're so used to seeing what's wrong with the world, and gratitude helps us see what is right.
It's very optimistic of you, Dave. But you're right, of course. In our brains, the negative screams and the positive just whispers. So it's helpful to give optimism a little bit of a voice.
I think that was a direct quote from Moses right there, actually, right?
One of our favorites.
It sounds like it. Yeah, with BetterHelp therapists, we can be reminded to live life based on preference instead of fear and negativity. BetterHelp is giving us a better approach to life.
Yeah, and we don't have to tell all of you that we're huge fans of therapy. And BetterHelp is a great way to bring it to more people. So if you're ever thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try.
Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic idea. It's entirely online and convenient. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a therapist. And remember, if it's not a good fit, you're going to get a switch for free.
Such a great option, you know?
It really is.
So Dave, visit betterhelp.com/nothing today to get this 10% off your first month.
Bada bing, bada boom. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/nothing. And that's it.
And that's it.
Peace.
We get to tackle it, Dave, because we've tackled some other things that are really daunting to get right, like anxiety, depression, borderline. All these things are sort of daunting to get right. ADHD, autism. So
I think for me, I don't know if you feel this way though, like the fact that we're not specifically like, and I know we don't have to be.
Speak for yourself.
Like, we're not like specialists in substance abuse.
No. I thought you were going to say we're not abusing substances.
No, I wasn't going to say that
because who knows, right?
Who knows?
Yeah. Coffee. Does that count?
Oh, yeah, sure, Greg. Coffee. You're such a
so you know what? I would like
badass.
to, while you're doing that, I was thinking, boy, this is a really long intro to the podcast. Maybe this is, I don't know. Anyways, tarot is such an interesting subject because it's like archetypes, and it's almost this way to connect with your subconscious through like symbols and like what are these things? Like it's sort of like very Jungian. So I think that might be a fun one too that I will add to
sure.
Kate's list. And there's like a weird occulty thing to it that could be fun.
Yeah. So I just wanted to let Kate know we are going to get back to her. I just wanted to take time and make sure it's like a well thought out response. But I did just want to acknowledge that like I really love those topic ideas. I thought, and then like the feedback she gave about the things that she appreciates about the podcast was so appreciated and like helpful for us to know what we're doing. Okay.
Need to know that sometimes.
But we had two people comment on the dynamics between us and recently, and I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know if you caught that on Instagram. Someone sent us a reel that was like about two friends, and I was like, and they said that's how I've envisioned you guys.
I didn't see this.
Okay, you'll have to check it out. But people kind of like picking up on our our friendship, and I appreciate that. That's nice.
Now what? Now what is the sort of consensus there that like opposites attract, like Paul Abdul and the cat?
Yeah, that's no, I just think people appreciate the way that we are able to have disagreements, but not like get offended by each other, and like also just kind of that like, oh, I haven't seen, we never like really get to spend a lot of time together except when we do this and Christmas.
That's it.
So
Yeah. Well, that's always been the most important thing to me about our relationship is knowing from day one that this person and myself have completely different points of view of the world. Yet, but there's something that you can't really put your finger on that's like we are on the same page on something that's sort of like unknowable. And I don't know what that is. Do you understand what that means? Like, I mean something there where it's like I felt a connection. This is sounding a little romantic, but like, but it wasn't like because of anything that we sort of see things the same way, or it's just something a little bit more deep where it's like, I think it's our intention and our goals are very similar, but the way we're planning on getting there are just completely different.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to frame it.
Yeah.
You know, there is something. I don't know that I know what it is.
If I was like, hey, what's that thing that you guys agree on? That would be hard to find. Other than the fact that we want to do good for people. That's it.
We like the field. We're interested by people. We're fascinated with people.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. And we are also fascinated with some dark people.
That is true. So yeah, Greg, take us into today's topic.
You know what? When I'm researching this topic, the first thing that I like to think about is it's the late 1800s. And that's kind of a tough place to be in general, right? There's a lot of wool, it's hot, it's like, you know, it's stuffy, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And to have that sort of almost Victorian backdrop into the House of Horrors and you know, let's call it what it is, like a murder castle, right? This long structure that's like literally like a city block long, and we're going to hear about asphyxiation and starving and human experiments and burned skin put in a vat of lime to decompose, and all of this in the backdrop and of this like beautiful World's Fair that's going on. We're talking about America's first known, as far as we know, serial killer, H.H. Holmes. Did you know about this guy?
I mean, yeah, but like not in depth. So, I mean, I feel like in today's society, if you're a fan of true crime, you kind of know about H.H. Holmes.
Yeah.
One way or another. He made an appearance even in like American Horror Story at one point. They had the what was it? Hotel? Was that the season?
So I've only seen the first.
Yeah. So I believe it was American Horror Story Hotel. Yeah, I think that was it. The one with Lady Gaga, I'm pretty sure. Okay. And yeah, he makes an appearance towards the end, and yeah, basically the hotel was supposed to replicate.
So my sort of introduction to him was, I have a friend Pete who's always giving me recommendations of books, and he recommended this book, Devil in the White City, years ago, and it kind of got me hooked on this author, Eric Larson, I'll recommend him. I mean, if you're interested in any kind of like historical, it's not historical fiction, it's like, but it is in a sense where like he'll talk about Churchill, or he'll talk about how like World War II started with how the Nazis got into power, or even like the Lusitania, or any kind of like real huge historic event, and he'll kind of follow a couple different people, and obviously he has to make up all the conversations they have. But in one of his books, Devil in the White City, he talks about the World's Fair and the architects in Chicago, and how, you know, the Ferris wheel is getting brought in, how difficult that is. But then the side story is H.H. Holmes. And, you know, we will not be able to get into the amount of scandal and fraud and usury and all the things that he did to sort of become who he was, because there's just, I mean, we would need like a 10-part series to go into the depths of the evil and the atrocities that is H.H. Holmes. But we can do our best to kind of start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Talk about
the story. You know, I'm just going to say this story is too long.
It's crazy long, and there's too many like players. So yeah. It's just one of those things where I'm like, all right, well, let's just kind of get the gist of this thing.
For what we do,
Yeah.
this felt like, as I'm doing it, I'm like, this is overwhelming. I don't even know where to start,
I agree.
what road to go down. And I'm not gonna lie, it made me a lot of the times, like, we were supposed to do this last week
Hmm.
and I couldn't get to it
I
because
felt overwhelmed. Yeah.
it made me want to put it off and
Because
procrastinate.
I had read the book, Dave, and in the book, we're talking hundreds of pages and like edge of your seat sort of interest in this guy. But how do you like distill that?
Yeah, there's so many different like things.
Absolutely. So interestingly, we'll just take it from the top. We'll go through a little bit like what his upbringing was, like we always do, and kind of see how he developed as this monster. But so he's born in New Hampshire, which I find interesting. Not a lot of monsters born in New
Have
Hampshire.
you ever visited his house?
No. Why is that like a mecca for you horror types?
I mean, it's definitely a location you can go visit.
Well, you know my fondness for the post office, where the murder castle is now a post office. So
Oh,
I have not checked that out, but you can visit that, and you can also mail a letter or a package, which is
okay.
nice. So, anyways, Herman Mudgett, born Herman Mudgett, which is kind of
Mudgett.
an unfortunate name.
That's a weird name.
Yeah, well, it was a weird kid, right? So his parents were cold and distant, as most 1800s parents are, but even by those standards, they were rigid, and everyone sort of was judged, and they were very religious. And of course, anytime you see like this kid growing up in a super religious family, that's typically someone that's going to act out. Like I remember my father when I was young telling me like, be careful for those Catholic schoolgirls. They might teach you a thing or two. And I don't know what he meant by that, but I
I
think
can only imagine.
yeah. So on top of being a Bible thumper, his father was a drunk, and he would do these things like he would isolate little Herman at the time, and he would deprive him of food, and this kind of stuff is going to show up later. You know what I mean? So like, remember when we talked about Beth Thomas? It's like, thank you for bringing that story to me. By the way, I bring it up quite a bit in classes and stuff, but he wasn't taught love. He wasn't taught like the importance of family and what it meant to be a family. He was taught how to sort of punish, and that family wasn't really important at all, and it was meaningless. And so as he's a little kid, not really caring about anything, not really having any empathy or love for anything, he starts experimenting with animals and killing them, which is, as we know, serial killer
That's a giant red flag right there, baby.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you got a buddy you're hanging out with and you're a kid and they start being like, "Hey, you want to like mess with it or like kill this
Who were we
girl?"
just talking about recently? And we talked about that.
I know Dahmer did it.
Yeah, we just did an episode like sort of recently, and they were doing it. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
It's like almost
Plenty
all
of
of
them.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost all of them. But
Have you ever done it?
No, I have not. I would never, ever in a million years do that. Also, like I have OCD, dude. I would never be able to. The guilt, I would never be able to do that. So, not that I want to. I'm just hindered by that.
You wouldn't be able to wash it off your hands enough.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I'd have to go do it again and again. No, he treats animals the way he was treating at home, right? So that is reactive attachment. I mean,
is that what it is? Is that what it
Yeah.
is? The animal killing? Is that? I mean, I'm sure it must be part of it, right?
It's part of the power, right?
Yeah, you're taking your frustration out, and you're exerting power because you feel completely powerless. So but that's not a red flag of a serial killer. That's a red flag of someone who's experiencing abuse and neglect, right? I mean, it is a red flag for a serial killer because obviously then that eventually goes to like, if I can do that, and maybe I can do that to a person.
So it's conditioning, operant conditioning.
Right.
Can you it's nature versus nurture. Can you be born a serial killer because you have a lesion on your amygdala or you have damage on the front part of your brain? Yeah, of course. Could be biological, but it could be conditioned too. Given
the right conditions, a kid with like antisocial personality doesn't necessarily have to just go out and start killing animals. It's but if he's experiencing bullying, abuse, neglect, isolation, all those things, then yeah, he's probably going to look to exert his power, his control, his frustration out on something that he feels is beneath him. and
Because
that
the
he has
parts,
strength over.
if you were doing a brain scan on two different people, and Herman Mudgett's over there like ripping a squirrel's heads off, like the parts in his brain that would light up with empathy and emotion aren't going to light up, but in someone else, they might see the pain in the squirrel or something like that, and they feel something, right? Like you're supposed to.
Yeah, he's going full Mudgett on that squirrel.
Dude, that squirrel didn't have a chance. He's like, here comes the Mudgett boy. Great.
Even the squirrels are bullying him.
So yeah, I know.
Hey, Mudgett.
What's sad though is you're right, because it's like, well, there's two things here. He's deranged, obviously, but he's also super intelligent, which is not a great combination to be deranged, emotionless, and super intelligent and ambitious. It's like, oh yeah. And not only is he treated horribly at home, he's also harassed and bullied in school. For example, his classmates drag him to a doctor's office. And back then, an old timey doctor's office was a horror show, right? And they were like making the skeleton touch his face and everything like that. And he was completely freaked out to the point where he said, after that, like looking back, he said, from that point on, he had never been afraid of anything ever again, which is scary, which is really scary. Now, again, in his childhood, there's this other sort of interesting thing that he played with this kid, Tom, a lot, this like local kid. He was a couple years older than him. And Tom was playing with Holmes, and he would kind of pick on Holmes, and they kind of had this weird relationship. But one day when Tom was playing with Holmes, Tom fell off a building. I mean, it's not funny, but like, and a lot of people speculate that Holmes killed him. That was the first murder. Like he killed somebody when he was young. It's like a very good son, Macaulay Culkin situation.
Yeah. Well, and getting to hear Holmes' story, it makes you wonder: did he push him, or did he somehow convince him that to do it? Because I mean, he's very persuasive, I guess, and he's constantly doing something.
Yeah, was he just like, oh, I've been killing? It's like an escalation, right? I've been killing animals. I'm more maybe there was a moment where Holmes realized that, oh, I'm a little bit more powerful than this Tom kid. That means he's kind of meaningless. I can treat him however I want, because people with power can treat the people without power any way they want to.
Now, here's the really messed up thing. You got a kid who's like not treated very nicely by others, gets a friend, and then kills his friend.
Dude.
So someone who's actually nice to him, he kills, because that niceness now represents what? Weakness.
Yeah. Vulnerability. It was something.
But he also was able to persuade. I wonder if that kind of built his confidence of his ability to persuade people, because like you persuaded this kid to go up on the roof and made him vulnerable, and then you were able to take advantage of him.
And then so from that point on, he's like, I need to seek out the vulnerable.
Yeah. And
exploit them.
Boom.
And never myself be vulnerable again.
Boom. We just figured out H.H. Holmes.
Yeah, that's it.
It's done. Episode over.
So let's get out of little kid land and start like 1878. He's young.
Kidland.
He's a teenager still, right? So he gets married, has a kid of his own, leaves for medical school because he's a smart guy, but he married the woman he married because of her money. And as soon as he kind of gets
smart
the money, yeah, like as soon as he's all set, like he kind of leaves people. So he bails after he gets the money, and then he starts realizing that he's looking for cadavers because he's in the medical world. And then he's like, wait a minute, I can use these cadavers to scam insurance companies.
Yes.
All I have to do is like, you know what I mean? Which is, it's amazing because you could never get away with stuff like that today. But in 1800s, you get away with all kinds of stuff. Oh, this is my friend. He died. I have insurance. Like, where's the body? Oh, it's right there. Right. Yep. I mean, it's amazing. But it just kind of goes to show you, like, he has no value of life or people or family. Like, nothing really there's no sort of scruples. He doesn't care about anything.
And think about this. He grew up Catholic, right? Mm-hmm. But yet he's taking cadavers and desecrating them. Like, you have to think of, like, so clearly, like, any religious beliefs clearly did not get passed off on him. They went one ear out the other.
Yeah, no. So what are
burning them? Yeah, that's what I wonder. Does he have any beliefs? Is he like the OG atheist? What is his beliefs?
He's the OG something.
Yeah, I mean, he burned and like disfigured cadavers. That's crazy.
So that he could be like, this is this person. Prove that it's not.
Yeah, he would take out insurance policies on them before planting the bodies.
It's kind of, and no one was doing that. I mean,
I know.
And he would just, this is how he would live his whole life where, imagine if you never felt bad for anything that you did wrong. You could pretty much get away with anything. It's still, even to this day, if there was no like guilt or fear, he's fearless too. I mean, it's literally the sky's the limit. But you're getting there in a really dark way. It's
Right.
is he happy? Like, is there like, I just wonder that.
So here's the thing with someone like him. It feels like he's chasing a feeling, right? And that feeling is risk taking or getting one over on people or success in his fraud and or getting away with something. It's like there's this thrill.
Mhm.
So, something that we might see in someone with like bipolar risk, that risk taking ADHD has some risk taking.
Yeah. Borderline.
So many different things involve like this risk taking.
And like borderline, so yes, in a sense, he's chasing something, but he's also running from a feeling too, running from that feeling of vulnerability and pain, or if he can even recognize
if he thinks that he has it. So I mean, there is also maybe this like narcissism.
Yeah, that's true.
That's like he's overshadowing any of those negative feelings with like this over boisterous confidence that he has, right?
Yeah, like maybe he can almost sort of look up to his dad in a sense and be like, he was right. Like there's weak people in the world and you can take advantage of them and get where you want to be.
That's what God would want us to do. My dad was right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I don't believe that, everyone. That was him. That was Mudge saying that.
You know what's funny? After graduation and from medical school or whatever, he does change his name to Dr. Henry Howard Holmes, which is really interesting. But when I first heard that today, I was like, oh my God, imagine if, so that's a triple H. Imagine if H was the sixth letter of the alphabet, it would be like 666, but it's actually the seventh. And did the math.
777.
Not as scary.
Mike Pitaro.
That's right. Yeah. The local
if you're from Rhode Island, you've seen those commercials.
Yeah. The guy's number is 7777777.
I guess I got a thing for sevens.
Yep. That's him. He does too.
That's a very local joke. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so that's how he makes his living though, right? He's a doctor. He could literally make his living in a normal way, but he's using like credit schemes and insurance fraud and marrying rich women, which he would do again and again from 1885 to 1892. In that time period, he has 3 more kids, many other scams. But around 1892 now, Dave, this is when he puts all his energy into creating what we call now the murder castle.
All right. If you just took everything that you just said right there and just eliminated the word murder, I would say this guy is awesome. He's balling, dude. He's like going through wives, he's getting paid, and he's got a castle, but then you threw in murder. And now I'm like, all right, I can't condone that.
I mean, and lots of murder too. Like, didn't they say, like, what are the numbers on this? They have no idea, but it could be like 200 women.
It's like 20 to like 200.
That's a big gap.
Yeah, I would say.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, the murder castle itself, I mean, I don't know how much you got into this, but before we even talk about that, like this is all going on with the backdrop of the Chicago's fair in the 1890s. Actually, 1893 is the fair. But at this time in Chicago, there's tons of vice. There's a lot of sex slavery. It wasn't this like really weird thing for women to be disappearing all the time. And now with the World's Fair coming in, it's like bigger than the Olympics coming to town. It's women and people are pouring in for jobs and hotels and whatever.
This needs to be an episode because of my ignorance. Can you explain to me exactly what a World's Fair was?
Sure, I would love to. So,
wow, you're way too eager to do that. That just threw me off. You know what? I kind of don't want to know anymore.
I did read the book, and I did really get into. It's actually really interesting. We don't really have them anymore. It was because of the internet and all this crap. But it was a place where, so first of all, this was to celebrate the 400th anniversary of Columbus coming to America. That's what this one was about. And they all bid on it. Like all the major cities in America bid on it just like you would. I mean, the major cities of the world, almost like you would
the Olympics. Wow.
Yeah, because it was like the last one had been in Paris, and one of the exhibits there was the Eiffel Tower. I mean, still doing pretty good. You know what I mean? So like they were like, all right, well, how do we get something as crazy or awesome as the Eiffel Tower? And this local guy, Ferris, came up with the Ferris wheel, and that was the first time in the world's
And
Chicago.
then they came up with Ferris Bueller.
That's right. And then he came up with the movie Ferris Bueller, which actually takes place in Chicago too, believe it or not. So also at the World's Fair, it's like where people kind of show off like the modern things, what's coming up, what's
All
big.
right. This is what I picture the World's Fair being.
Hmm.
I picture it being like Epcot at Disney. It's
You're
like,
right.
and it's all like the future. You know,
Mhm.
when you go in the ball and they show you like
Absolutely.
where men came from, but then all to like the future, and you pick like what kind of future you would want. I
Yeah.
picture it being like that. Like it's all future
It's that.
development.
It's also like, so say, there's an exhibit for like Africa or something, and they would have like lions and the culture and the food, just kind of like exactly like that. But in this one, they also had like, what's coming up. Like Pabst was introduced, Cracker Jacks were introduced, Wrigley's gum was introduced, dishwashers and
Wait. Go back.
cream of wheat.
PBR was introduced.
That's right.
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
That's right.
Wow.
At the Chicago's World Fair.
So, all right. Here's why we're talking about this.
Yeah.
Think about the juxtaposition here. We're talking about this exciting, thrilling, future forward thinking event happening. People are excited. They're into it. And then you have this vicious killer who's just there wanting to take advantage of whoever he can and murder.
Fish in a barrel for him.
Yeah.
I mean, think about all the people. Like, you're not able to keep track of the amount of people coming in, not just to, you literally have to build a city for this. This is like a years-long project. So young women are coming to work at like offices, hotels, whatever.
Who's going to notice if they disappear?
No one.
He's a kid in a candy store of death.
Oh, yeah. Dude. Yeah, he is. He is. And he probably does sell candy because he creates a pharmacy.
And he probably has a van with no windows.
He's a sicko, but he's a hunter is what he is. Yeah. I mean, and he created the perfect little sort of trap for these people where this murder castle is where he would lure the people through like, hey, you want a job? Hey, you want to get married? Hey, you like all these different ways he had to lure women. And when he was building it, because when we talk about the murder castle, you'll see that like there was various different rooms, like 15 rooms that were for torture and death. And it's like a very hostile type situation.
So there's secret passages.
Yeah.
There's trap doors. Mm-hmm. There's soundproof rooms. There's doors that can be locked from the outside. And there's gas jets to asphyxiate victims. And there's a kiln to actually cremate the bodies. It's the perfect weapon.
It really is. It's like a one-stop shop.
If your business is murder, this is where you want to go.
He's in the murder business.
He's in the murder business.
Murder Inc. So, yeah, no, Dave. And like, what is it with the different styles of torture for 15 different? Is it a kink? Because it honestly, like, there doesn't seem to be a ton sexually to this.
And you know that I was actually just going to say this, and until I just read that list, I wouldn't have thought that. I wouldn't have. You're right. There's not a thing about him that actually makes me feel like he's doing it for the thrill of the kill. It feels like the kill is part of the process to get money. Like to me, this is going to like, I don't know if this is going to put people in an uproar. I actually kind of find him boring as a serial killer because I don't feel like he's there for the thrill of the kill. Right. I feel like he's more for the thrill of the heist, to get money. He just feels like he's money driven. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then there's now there's the murder castle introduced. And it's like, wait a minute, maybe he does really like the kill.
I mean, can't both things be true?
Yeah.
I mean, but is it like a sexual thing? Because he doesn't seem to have any problem getting, like, because with other series.
Oh, he's getting ladies left and right.
Yeah, like it doesn't
crazy.
seem to be
because I also heard he smelled bad.
Everyone did in 1890. Didn't they?
I
It would smell
guess.
good.
Well, to the point where he had a nickname because of his smell.
He did. What was it?
I mean, this is information I heard from another
Hearsay.
source that I don't necessarily know for certain. So might be hearsay, but I heard it was smegma. Schmegma?
Is that what his
I said
nickname?
smegma. It's schmegma.
That was his nickname.
That was his nickname from what I heard.
Ew, gross.
So I did listen to Morbid's podcast
Oh,
about
okay.
H.H. Holmes. So I'll give them a shout out. And they mentioned that nickname. And they did a whole long, multiple part. Like, so if you want in depth and you're interested in H.H. Holmes, I mean, they had every single detail you could find.
Well, what's important to know about him? I mean, if you've seen the Hostel movies,
It's the story, you know.
Yeah.
It's. But like I said, for me, like I found his story to be less interesting for the reasons I said. Like he's very money driven. He's risk taking driven. Like it's the thrill isn't about the murder, which I mean is good because like who
Yeah.
wants that? But then that also kind of makes it more disgusting to me because it's like, dude, you're
People are
murdering all these people and
disposable.
you don't even like, yeah.
They're just
It's just
disposable.
it's just part of the process. Like that's even worse, I think, actually.
I think maybe it has something to do with like as he becomes more into the medical field, it becomes a little bit more like experimental. He's like, well, I wonder how
that
these people
aspect's
die.
interesting.
Yeah. That's when it becomes like Human Centipede, like Hostel. Remember those Hostel movies? I couldn't even
Yeah.
watch that. Like
I love
that's
the
what it seems
Hostel
like.
movies,
That's
dude.
what it seems like here, though, where it would be like, okay, like you're alive. I'm gonna like see what this does just out of pure interest. You know what I mean?
The Hostel movies are in line with something like The Purge almost,
Mhm.
where it's like you take out your frustrations because it's basically rich people buying people to murder to basically it like we were talking about with killing animals. It's exerting your power, your strength over somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so we got the murder castle. He murders a ton of people in there. And then what?
Well, I mean, like we're then he eventually gets caught because he's owes everybody money around town.
Yeah.
That's how he ends up getting caught. And he has this weird guy, Benjamin Peitzel, who is the reason why he gets caught. I mean, if you think of Benjamin Peitzel, that was his Renfield to Dracula. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was like this guy that kind of like helped him lure women, helped him dispose of bodies. So he was kind of in it the whole time with H.H. Holmes. But then like did you see that movie? I mean, this is kind of an ADHD moment, but like the show Penguin that's on right now.
I haven't watched it yet. I can't wait to though. I don't know why I put it off so long.
Well, I mean, then I won't do a spoiler alert, but like it's like a weird relationship like Penguin has with this kid that he kind of picks up. When I say kid, he's like probably 20 or whatever.
Yeah.
But it sort of like Benjamin Peitzel thinks he's, in with Holmes, and Holmes ends up murdering him too because he knows too much. I mean, think about even the carpenters that were building this murder castle. They think that a lot of them were murdered too because it's like, oh, we're just gonna put these gas jets in this bedroom. Why? And it's like, dead. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he would just kind of like have people build little pieces of it, so no one really knew what was going on. He's like a very. I've also heard people say that there's like a weird Jack the Ripper connection with him. Like people think that was a. It was around the same time.
I heard this too. There was a show that was like trying to make that comparison. I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was like on the Travel Network or something.
Yeah, and I found that really interesting, and I guess it's kind of.
I like to think they're not the same. I like to think of Jack the Ripper being just like this totally unrelated,
like ghost kind
British
of
guy,
Yeah.
somewhere. Just to go back to something you had mentioned, like so when he's got the murder castle and you got the world's expo going on in 1893. The way, like you mentioned before, like there's all these women coming in, and basically the path he was taking was he was seducing and then murdering these women, but typically by like engaging them in getting engaged to them and then killing them after he gets a hold of their savings, their money. So I mean that's his game, right? It's all about securing their money.
And that's what it's all about. And then what's also kind of interesting about Holmes is there's no satisfying confession. Like there's never this moment where he's like, "All right, guys, you got me, and this is how I did it, and these are the people that I killed," and he just never admits to any of it,
And I would have
ever.
got away with it if it weren't for that dog.
Yeah. No, I mean he's killed. They found children's bodies, like because some of the women that were like had kids already, and maybe they
Yeah.
were widowed or whatever, and you
This
know,
was also a big no-no for him. At one point he's married and then he's like promising engagement to another woman. Like these are all big things at this time too. This isn't like today's society where like I guess that wouldn't be as uncommon as it is in, the late 1800s.
yeah,
For someone to be married and then promise to marry another woman is a big deal, I would say,
big
right?
deal. I think it's still a big deal, Dave.
I think it is, but it's like probably
It
far
should
less
be. Yeah.
common in the late 1800s than it is now. Um,
And what's
and
funny is
they
like,
buy it.
yeah, well, because people buy it because I think, you know, more or less people are sort of living in accordance with social norms, and they're like, okay, this guy's saying like he owns this business, this guy's saying he's going to pay his debt, this guy's saying like he's married or he wants to marry me. Like, why shouldn't I believe him?
Yeah.
You know, like it's like why you would never think that, oh, well, maybe he has like four other marriages going on right now and he's going to rip me off and steal my money and kill me and my child. You know what I mean?
So Greg, let's take a stab because I mean I think we're both kind of identifying like there's this whole elaborate story, and
Yeah.
then ultimately that Peitzel guy becomes his downfall because they endeavor in a bunch of like of these insurance scams, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually he tries to kill Peitzel, or does he kill Peitzel?
He does kill him.
He kills him.
Yeah.
Was that out of vengeance or just another piece of
Just what he needed to do.
playing another like chess piece in his way or
Exactly.
whatever?
Yep.
All right. So I mean it's more of the same, right? It's all this like repeated like insurance fraud, kind of like manipulating people, fooling people, mental health wise,
Mm-hmm.
psychology wise.
Okay.
Let's take a really quick look at like what do we think is going on here? Like, so one theme comes to mind that I think is interesting for us to point out. Obviously, he's got some really dark tendencies, some twisted thoughts, a lot of sociopath behavior. The thing that strikes me is how he is able to carry every single thing out with success. He is able to get every single one of these people that he murders to believe him to be truthful. So, how does he do that? Like, what makes people feel comfortable enough to believe that he's going to marry them, or that he's an honest man, or that he's like even being a weird guy? People he still fall for him.
Yeah. So
Why?
there's two things there. Like one is, how does he become who he is? And like, how does anybody, how do we know what we know as people, right? And that obviously, unfortunately, always starts with our upbringing. A lot of pressure on the parents there. But as far as someone to look at you and tell you the truth, like Dave, now if I'm gonna lie right to your face, because I do have, minimal empathy, you know what I mean? And like, so like, well, I do have sort of emotion. Um, and, if everything's working properly in the human brain, and if we've been developed in any sort of with compassion or, shown any love throughout our lives, we do develop this, sense of empathy and earnestness. And you can't just look at someone and lie right in their face without some kind of tell. And I think that there's something almost biological and evolutionary that like reveals something to us when someone's lying to us or something's off. We can just kind of feel that a little bit. And if you don't have any remorse or any qualms or any guilt about how this is going, you're misleading this person. I think that you can really just look them right in the eye, you almost can feel when someone's looking you in the eye and they mean something so much, like you really care. Like you've looked at people for a long time now across the room in their most vulnerable moments, and you know when they're telling the truth, and you know when they're being real, and you know if this is just kind of a show.
Sure.
Kind of do, right? And
You
I
know,
think that's what's going on with him.
it's funny you said that. I was actually doing some work with a younger kid that I work with. I was having him watch videos, and we're that like to identify emotions through body language and facial
You were
expressions.
worried he was a sociopath.
He just really is not good at identifying people's emotions. And then
Right.
and then we stumbled on some videos about lying and how to, and it was like giving you multiple people and you had to pick out which person was lying. I've actually started to see the pattern of like what that entails facial expression wise. But yeah, in order for him to pull this off, he has to not have that.
Hmm.
He has to not send off that energy, that body language, that facial expression that allows people to kind of pick up that maybe some of the things he's saying are facetious. Maybe he's just really good at it. Maybe he believes in his own stories, but he's also got charisma,
Yeah.
right? He's also has a personality. He must have an extroverted personality. Something about his personality draws people in.
It's like a perfect
Even
storm. That's what happens a lot. That's why we're
even
still saying
Peitzel.
his name. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's why we're still
Like Ted
talking about it.
Bundy, right? Ted
Of
Bundy.
course. Yeah.
So Ted Bundy is like a more modern day. I know he's still ages ago now, but a more modern day version of H. Holmes, manipulating
But
women.
do you think Ted Bundy? He's very similar, isn't it?
Yeah,
Very like the narcissism and everything. And
and
obviously,
and like even like think about the successes Ted Bundy was able to have. He was able to get far, right? In some
yeah,
ways, and convince people he was
even the judge
something
almost.
that. Yeah,
You know.
I think
So
there are a
what
lot of
about
parallels here, actually.
Dave? What do you think? Yeah, no, absolutely. So like a malignant narcissist, almost like a
Right.
narcissistic personality disorder. But what I
Grandiose
what do you
thinking
think?
at times.
What do you think about? Yes, absolutely grandiose. But like, what do you think about people like this having? And I don't know if this comes up a lot. No, we're always talking about an issue, and now we're kind of like this is complete speculation. We always kind of talk about, oh, there must be a damage in the prefrontal area. He's got no brakes. He's got no, empathy, whatever. But like, I think that maybe if you think about another brain structure, the amygdala, which is kind of what we talk about with anxiety and fear and emotion in general, right? Like, if you kind of have to have no fear and no anxiety to look at someone, because if you're thinking about what anxiety is, it's sort of like these thoughts and beliefs about what could, like, he's telling someone a story, but he's like also, if he has anxiety, he's thinking like, well, what if they don't believe it? What if this goes wrong? What if I can't produce this? Like, but if you don't have any of that, if you don't have the anxiety,
Yeah.
it's almost like without anxiety, you're also a monster.
You're able to do a
Yeah.
lot that some people wouldn't be able to tolerate doing. I just
And
had another crazy thought.
okay.
So he goes to medical school and he's
Mhm.
messing with cadavers. He's trying to like do experiments on things, right? Do
And
you know
that
any of the details of some of those experiments that he was trying? Wasn't he
no.
like hiding things under his bed and things like that? I can't remember some of the details. Some of this is like um, probably just shouldn't even be mentioned because maybe it's not correct. But I do believe that he was like drawn to like that medical work, and I almost feel like maybe he envisions himself as like trying to be God, like as like like trying to. I don't know exactly
Like
what
a
he wanted to.
Frankenstein kind of thing?
100%. And then I think about his upbringing and his dad and his like that Catholicism. And then we think about the lack of religion he clearly embodies.
Yeah.
He almost envisions himself as like a powerful individual.
What about this, Dave? What about like my dad only respected God? What if I can become godlike?
Right.
Then I can get the approval of my father
Of my
from him.
father. He's got daddy issues.
Now that's when people are like, ugh, I hate therapists. Like when you're having a conversation with like like with normies.
Normies.
Or
We
like
call them muggles, dude.
yeah.
No,
Abracadabra.
we call them mudgets.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean it's kind of fun to kind of just speculate about this kind of stuff. Like why are people the way they are, you know? And like
I think there's something here because I even like when I was doing some of the research and I was hearing about some of like the medical stuff that he was getting into early on in life, it almost made me feel like, oh, this dude thinks he's God.
mhm,
He's trying to play God. That's scary.
that is scary.
I fear for that, not just like in murder, but also with society. Um, some individuals, some high ranking, high powerful individuals who want to like bring society into this new level, and like it almost scares me too much because I feel like they're almost like trying to, like, it's very not what's the word I'm looking for, it's not Taoism at all, right? Like they're throwing off that balance of nature, right?
Oh yeah, like yin
You know what
and
I'm
yang.
saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all them. I feel like they're almost scary because of like the way they're constantly thinking like all this future based stuff. But I feel like some of their thought, like some of that process might throw us off of that balance of us
Uh,
and nature.
Honestly, like, look, and you and I have both talked about this before. We're not like really religious guys, but I think like that worked for so long, and that's part of like our like who we are through like myths and stories and legends and however you want that to manifest something bigger than you that you kind of respect and makes you feel kind of, I don't know, less important. And I don't mean that in like a
Right.
negative way. It's hard to like Elon Musk and these like, you know, grandiose people. It's like you're not that important as you like, you're
But
not
if
like this
it,
thing.
I think you bring up a great point. If you don't believe in something bigger than you, then you believe that you can be the biggest thing.
And it's like
It's scary.
that's scary. And it feels weird coming out of our mouth because it's like you want people to feel like they can rise to whatever, but it's like, I mean, what's to what end?
Right.
I mean, really, I don't know. It's
We
that's a
all have a responsibility. Our responsibility is to each other, to nature,
Mhm.
to the earth in some
Yeah.
ways, like I feel like we all have this responsibility. And it kind of brings us back to this idea that I've shared previously. It's like when we lose certain things in society, we start to like it, I don't know, it just brings this like emptiness. It brings this like sense that we are like a little bit bigger than what we actually are. And it's also scary. Like I shared with, you know, that idea that like if we die, then oh my God, we just nothing. Like that, like there's all that anxiety it brings. So major tangent, but like kind of all related to H. Holmes in some way, shape, or form, I'm pretty sure.
Sure, why not? Yeah.
Right, right.
Sure, why not?
He's a
If you
person
just
and
say
we're
that at
talking
the
about
end, it
people. So
relates. Yeah, yeah. And that's how I feel
um
about H. Holmes. So
yeah. Uh so I know this wasn't like our best roundup of a person, because we didn't really tie any too much together, but I Greg, was there more that you wanted to share about HH or?
so I like there's so much that we didn't talk about, but I think that like also the point of this is always to kind of get people interested in the subjects that we're interested in. And you know what, I got to be honest, like I love the way Eric Larson put this together, but I don't think his story is. I think it's a fascinating story, and I think he's the first American serial killer, so it's an important story for us to talk about. But for whatever reason, it didn't like it. It wasn't sort of. He didn't catch me as like such a big personality, and maybe that's because it's like out of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was wondering that too, if
You
it's
know,
like because of the time period and everything.
because we're like, oh,
Harder to relate.
he's not as like intense as some of these other serial killers. But it's like, look, this is the 1800s. Like the fact that he was like seeing ankles was like a big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, I don't know. We got to remember this is the Victorian. So it's like when we watched the Universal Monsters movies and we're like, holy shit, people thought these were scary. And then, you know, like, can you imagine what the people in the 1800s when they heard this story about this house and the asphyxiation and the torture and the starvation and the experiments? They must have been like, what the hell? They've never heard anything like that before, right?
Yeah.
So through the lens that we're looking at it, it's like, all right, this doesn't sound that intense, but for them, it's like, so you can't say, it's almost like saying like you have to appreciate the Beatles to appreciate today's music. Like you have to appreciate, you know, H. Holmes and see how this developed to see how today's serial killers developed, right?
Right. Right.
Different time. So that's just what I think.
So that's H. Holmes.
That is.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to say something. Greg.
Yeah.
So, all right, before I direct this at Greg, Greg has another podcast and it's called A Really Good Podcast. And he does it with his friend Liz.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a Halloween episode. And maybe he thought I wasn't going to listen. Maybe that was the assumption. but he openly talked shit about people who like horror movies
I did not.
and maybe over associate with horror movies, which is clearly me.
No.
And you said red flag, and I will go back, listen to that episode. No, I won't, because then I will give you another listen. So I'm not going to give you that satisfaction.
Well, that'll be 8 for that one.
I should have taken notes to play back the
I want to hear what I said
that you said about me.
Oh,
not directly. You didn't say my name, but at no point in time was like, oh, I do a podcast
except Dave.
And you even brought up like the Universal Monsters stuff that we talked about, and at no point was there a shout out to me. At no point was there like there was like we did a deep dive together.
You know what's funny though, Dave?
And you brought up my idea of Dracula being a narcissist.
And I'm going to be completely honest with you here. You're right in me like not saying it, like mentioning this podcast on purpose, because like I never know if that's appropriate. Like I would always want, and like that, and you have to admit, like I never mentioned that podcast on this podcast, and I noticed you never really mentioned I've mentioned your horror stuff more than you've mentioned your horror stuff. So
yeah, it's weird, kind of self-promoting sometimes.
Yeah.
I agree, but so, I just thought that was so funny, dude. Like because Liz made a comment, and then you said something, and I was like, all right, I'm a big red flag, I guess. Cool.
No, you're the least red flag on the planet.
I have to go back and get those quotes, and I'll bring them.
Make a reel of it. Make a reel of it.
Yeah.
Because we don't do
freaking Greg, man. And I was like, maybe he'll say my name now. Maybe he'll say my name now. Nope.
Wait till you hear the next one.
Oh, you're just gonna like.
I'm gonna talk about you the whole time.
Oh God.
You know what's funny is, Dave, like we were talking about being like really busy and kind of like not being able to kind of fulfill these, trying our best to catch up and everything. I haven't been able to do that podcast in a couple of weeks.
I had a feeling because I saw you you did the Halloween one, and then when I went, there was like a gap of when I like listened to it to that day. So I felt like maybe you hadn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this is the this is the bread and butter, right? No matter what happens, this is the OG podcast for me, and like this is the most important thing. So I got to make sure that this is cooking.
It's all important, Greg, because it's all projects that you're involved in. It all is representative of who you are and what you're doing, and there's value in everything. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it.
All that aside, what did you think about that? What did you think about the podcast? If you've ever listened, is it a pretty good podcast? I've listened. Is
it a pretty good or is it a really good podcast?
Is it a really good podcast?
I mean, I enjoy it because, well, am I biased? Maybe. Yeah. Sometimes I get mad with you on there. No, I don't get mad with you. I feel like you're fine. Liz does a great job. I told you that before. She's a good host. She definitely does a lot of work to make that. I mean, I empathize with her because I bet you do. I know what it's like to
you guys have to
do a podcast with you.
You guys have a lot in common, I'm sure.
She puts a lot of effort into it.
She does. She calls me the personality. So I just
I don't. I think she has a lot of personality. So
she absolutely does. She does a great job. Also, Dave's podcast. You should talk about your podcast here too.
I don't need to. We've done it before. PVD horror. I mean, if you like horror, then give it a shot. Sometimes I dabble in a little psychology on there. So the thing is, and I'm sure you do this too. You can't erase who you are as a person.
That's right.
I am very intentional, though. I try to not be the exact same in both settings.
Yeah.
But it is impossible for me not to. Like, I do a lot of interviews there on that one. It is impossible for me not to take the bait. If somebody says something and I find it intriguing and I want to dig in on some like mental health or psychology stuff, I start doing it. And like, but also I don't see a ton of people doing that in the realm of like horror movies and
which I'm surprised.
Conversation with actors. They do, like, some people talk about mental health and horror, but like having a conversation with an actor and then they say something and you're like, oh, let me go on this tangent about life and journeys and stuff like that. Like, I don't hear that. So I'm like, oh, that's a little bit unique, but I do try to like be a little bit different on there. Or not different, but showcase another side of me on there.
That makes sense. So do I. I mean? So do I. I try to be like I try to, I don't know, maybe joke around. I don't know. I just don't. I just show up. That's kind of what I do for that one. This one I really do. It may not seem like it, but I do try to give this one my best.
Yeah.
Hopefully that comes through because I'm
really, sure it does. From the feedback we get, people seem to get it, and we're just who we are. And
trying our best.
That's it. We're doing the best we can. Damn it.
Yeah.
So we are obviously going to be doing another episode next week, but where was I just going to go with that? I just lost train of my. Oh no, I don't know why I said what I just said. I was going to say we are continuing to put our video episodes up on YouTube. If that's something that people like to see, just let us know. If you're enjoying that, if you think we shouldn't bother with it, just let us know. It is a little extra work to do it. Not a ton, but like just a little bit extra. So if it's something that's not is unnecessary, then I'll do away with it. Doesn't matter to us. We're doing these episodes no matter what. But we'd love to hear some feedback if you guys like the video episodes, or if you just continue to prefer listening and that satisfies your needs, then that's cool. It's probably on your commute to work like us where you listen. But other than that, thanks for listening, and leave a rating and review when you get a chance. Send us an email, utgnpodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up on any of the social medias. We greatly appreciate it. And also, we always ask for rating and reviews, but I guess I should also ask this. If you like what you're hearing or you like an episode, share it on your social media. Go onto your Instagram or on Twitter or wherever, and feel free to, give it a share and let people know that what you're listening to, what episode you like, stuff like that.
Feel free.
Feel free. It's free, and you should feel free. So thank you. But everybody have a happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate Thanksgiving. If not, then have a great Thursday, and we will see you next week.
See you next week. Gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Thankfulness.
Giving.
Good night, everyone. Peace.